Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Moon Colony live stream. I hope you're all doing well. It's a Monday, which is good. I hope you're all winding into the week well. We've got Arthur with us again here today. Hello, Arthur.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Good. And we're going to be doing
Jahin's here.
some art critiques today. Yeah,
Sorry.
Jahin's here. Yeah, no, that's fine. Um, Jahin's here. Elvira's here. We've got David as well. Nice to see you. But yeah, we've got Arthur here to do some critiques today. As per usual, I feel like we get you to do critiques quite a lot, but it's because you're so good at it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
To
So
hear.
we've taken a selection of I think it's five pieces today. One, two, three, four, five.
Yes.
Yeah. So taking a selection of 5 pieces today from the submissions on the Discord. Thank you everybody who did submit. It's a shame we can't do all of you, but that would take hours. So we have to select just a handful, but you can always try again next time. And I'm sure you'll
Yeah.
learn something from this anyway. But yeah, I don't want to waste too long doing intros, so I will let Arthur kind of get straight into it. This first
Okay.
one is by Saul the Letdown, self-given
Yeah.
title. We didn't give him that
Yes.
title. Um,
Yeah. You're doing okay, you know. It's
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
It's really good. Yeah. So, hey everybody. Yeah, it's nice to be back for a bit of art critique, constructive art critique, of course. Stuff, tips and stuff
Yeah.
that you can actually, that can help you improve, hopefully. So yeah, I chose a couple of like 5 different pieces that are different, level, different also subjects and sort of like I guess themes and um, also different how to say disciplines. Some things more concept art, some things more fantasy stylized, some things more that gives me vibes of Ranja from back in the day, like 10 years ago. Sort of nice, moody Chinese sort of fantasy illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
Some stuff like, I just didn't know how it was done. Like, I still don't, I just pretend I do, but it's really amazing. Anyway, and some stuff that's more Hearthstone-y, and this, which is, I guess, dark, kind of a painterly illustration. Really, really cool. So yeah, a nice sort of gamut, nice range of illustrations and concept arts that I hope will cover, pretty much everybody's bases, hopefully, and we'll all learn something. Yeah, so let's get started with you, Solo Let Down. So great stuff. Overall, it's looking good. The first thing that sort of struck me is that maybe the pose of the character is a little bit, how to say, like flat in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what I mean. Like, basically, this leg is a bit too much to the side, and so it sort of makes the whole gesture of the character like on just one plane, pretty much. It sort of looks a little flat. So here's what I recommend: take this leg here and make it more like tilted forward like this. You can pretty much you can keep everything you have here, just sort of move it to the side and give it a bit more more space on this side here, because it's a bit too contracted there on that side. But essentially you can reuse the same shapes, just extend a bit the far side of the knee, and that will create a nice sort of projection forward for your character. This here. I'm left-handed, so I often have to sort of flip the canvas to find the right hand motions that gel nicely. So this is what I mean, essentially. Also, you could make the hips face us a little more frontally, I guess, like this, and create a nice sort of S curve for the chest, like have the chest sort of curve to the right like this, and then bring it back there. Like a nice sort of twist to the pose is really cool. Like twisting the gesture and like projecting limbs forward and backward is pretty cool. It's always sort of an efficient way to create a depth and volume. like volume for your character and depth for like the illustration as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that connect differently. Like this. For same for the hand, I think it sort of extends a little too much, like the arm a little too much to the side. We could do something more like this. Like I think what you have here works well, but here there could be more of an overlap, and this character could be projecting its, like sort of pointing its spear forward a little more. Keep the same, essentially the same pose, like the same gesture, everything. Just wherever it connects to the hand, you create a nice sort of round connection here, so we understand it's sort of pointing forward. Like if you make this flat like this, we'll sort of sense that like the spear is somewhat like angled sideways, or it looks a little flat in perspective. So like, yeah, whenever you have like something cylindrical or circular somehow, like for example, like that could be like the shaft of a spear. It can be also the like rings of the like an arm brace, or a like a bracelet or whatever on your character. Like try to give them a nice like bit of curve, so we understand there's like an angle to it. Try to avoid flat lines, because it's sort of flat, yeah, well, flatten everything, of course. So yeah, a bit more curvature there would look great. So you see, it's not much, but I think it would improve the gesture. It's just like little fundamental tips like this for projecting limbs forward, like this. That's pretty interesting. I love the face. It's really vicious and weird and symmetrical. I like it. So yeah, that's the thing I sort of rave about like a lot, is making sure like the face shows nice symmetrical like features. It doesn't matter what those features are. It can be, that's up to you, but it just looks more finished and more confident as a design where things are symmetrically like disposed. It's of course, if on purpose, like if the design calls for like just a much bigger eye, like something deformed or maimed in a way, that of course, you try to exaggerate that, but overall, if things are supposed to be symmetrical, make sure like you sort of nail it. And I appreciate that you gave it a little angle. Like it's a tricky way. Like usually we go for, I mean, we like illustrators, we try to go for either like a strong 3/4 view, or like a really like straight on view like this. But you managed to do like a nice little, like a slight angle to a front view. The only thing I would change, probably give a little bit, like show that ear a little bit like this. It can be tucked away, hidden behind this here, because he's sort of turning his head to the left. But yeah, that would be it. Like a slight nerd, like a archery nerd note here. There's I forgot the names of everything. I'm not quite the nerd like this. That's fletching.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a notch. I believe that's the notch, right? Or right. So essentially, you need a little more room for fingers to sort of like notch an arrow to a string. So usually, like arrows have a bit of an extra bit of shaft behind them. You can either show it or not, but like they have a notch there, and that it's a little maybe naive, or like just maybe not know about these things, but when an arrow looks like just the end of like the butt of a rocket, for example, that's just something to try to avoid. Not very important, but I think it's just something. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think you're looking good otherwise. Just try to play around with this thing, and in your future illustrations as well. I try to project limbs forward and try to twist your motions, like your gestures here for an interesting look. I'll save these, of course, and we'll share them in the end.
Yeah, it'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, trying to move quick, because like it's like last time I like sort of spend a little too much time on the first one and less and less time in the end. 5 minutes to say, it's just whatever, it's great, don't worry, see you next time. But yeah, let me be more organized. Let me manage my time a little better this time. This one is by let me see, Olena
Yes.
Chernyuk. Chernyuk.
Chevenyuk, yes. So they said they're trying to make a composition and stylization in the Hearthstone style, which I think
Mm.
you can see pretty well.
Mm.
So any good advice on how to approach that would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So overall style was, I think you're pretty close. This would be a great like I would consider this like maybe 70, like 60 to 70% done, like for as a Hearthstone card. It needs a little more polishing, a little more refining, but it's already very, very well advanced, and color wise, it's looking great. So
Mm-hmm.
the tips I'm going to give you are a bit like structural as well, something to do with the gesture and the I guess the volumes overall, because you see like this you've managed to convey a lot of volume and depth like with the gesture of the character, like it's very lively. We can understand like with atmosphere, like the sort of green atmosphere, like the character sort of recedes in space more and more, so that's all working really great. Now one thing that I think could be improved is the or at least changed is how symmetrical the face is, because I think it's maybe it's a mirroring thing, maybe used, maybe not, I'm not sure, but overall the face looks a little flat.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's supposed to be on purpose, like let's say it's a very snub sort of snout or something, this dragon, uh, I think it's always good to try to convey a bit more volume and changes in direction. So let me see if I can do it just by lassoing it, but if I can't, I think I'll have to paint over or draw over.
That doesn't seem to be going too bad.
Yeah, I guess it's okay. Let's try this here. And then let's do the same with the other eye. Try to sort of squeeze it further to the side. That's we're sort of going away from your original like the
Mm.
proportions, so it's a bit maybe it's not quite what you had in mind. Uh, but this is what I think would be would add interest to your piece. Essentially, this and let's see what I can paint over. Like a good way to think about it is like adding a median line and trying to see the subtle changes in angle you can convey with just that. I'll remove that; it's a bit too distracting. Um, or not. I feel I can't really paint without it now.
Yeah.
Okay, there. But yeah, and again, try to think of symmetry. As you do this thing, it's pretty tricky. It takes a while. It's a pretty big change to apply to an already like an almost finished image, but
Mm.
uh, I think it would be great, and it would make it a really solid portfolio piece. Give this eye a bit more volume. Like scale it up a little bit, and contract this one more, like make it a little smaller and squeeze it a little bit.
Yeah.
And whenever you paint a feature on one side, try to always remember or indicate what the median, so the sort of middle axis would be, and try to really measure it and report it to the other side and see how it gels, see how it works. If you're happy with it, great. If you want this to be closer here, then make sure you, again, like apply the same change over there. Same for the teeth. That works great what you have here. But you see, like now having the face sort of tilted sideways, we can make some interesting changes in distance between the teeth. That looks a bit more natural, more spontaneous. Also changes in angle. So, for example, these teeth have a sort of a almost like a garlic clove sort of shape. you know, like they have a sort of a ridge here, like an inside and an outside, which is really cool. And now on the like this side here on the left now, we can make this ridge a little closer to the inside, and it will create a nice sort of, it's very subtle. It's a slight change in, angle, but subtlety is always, it pays off. You might think, well, people won't notice anyway. Why should I bother? But maybe people don't notice just the one detail, but overall, if it's consistent, it does create a pretty strong impact.
Yeah.
That's a good exercise too. Just trying to practice those subtle changes in angle, just like what we had here. So almost frontal, like gesture for the face or pose for the face, just a little bit of a change in angle,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to sort of follow through where those various uh, like features like the ears and stuff would be according to that. Yeah, like this. Also, one thing, now it's not an issue at all, but it can quickly become like if you're painting in perspective, it's like making sure that your features are well aligned. Uh, you know, a bit
Yeah.
of stylistic, variation is okay, uh, but it's important to do that and give it a bit of perspective, just a slight sort of, like the lines sort of getting closer together on the far side would be interesting. A quick guide like that can help you avoid some mistakes.
Mm.
And yeah, make sure you sort of align everything well into that. Um, for example, if this goes this far from the median line, this will go a little further here. And also, yeah, now we have the horns. And
Yeah, I
also
can
like this, so
see.
this black horn, yep.
Oh, sorry, I was going to see. I can see how having those lines there to help keep everything aligned is really it's really nice. You don't have to do everything by eye.
Yeah, yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. It's like a primitive sort of, and it's a single purpose sort of perspective. It's just for the
Yeah.
head, but it really helps. Like it's not so much necessary like when the features are very close to each other, but the further apart they are, the more
Yeah.
it's like guesswork is just harder. Yeah. Let
Yeah.
me see. I'll just mute my notifications because I seem to be very much in demand from my coworkers. I have a bunch of things, but so distracting. Anyway, so last thing I wanted to say is like this horn here is a bit too, again, like to align with the rest of the
Mhm.
face. So given what you have here, like this sort of change here, that's I think would look cooler if it went that way. And you could give it a bit of a that roundness that suggests like it's, sort of pointing backwards.
Yeah.
Would be really cool.
Yeah, that adds to the depth a little bit more as well, doesn't it?
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. But otherwise, it's a very successful illustration. Be careful. There's a couple of things here I would suggest is like claws, like digits on dragons and beasts and stuff like that. They're pretty tricky because if you change a little too slight, like even slightly, their shape or their angle, they look like they're not even like they don't look correct, even though it's like
Mhm.
made up. So just be extra careful. Like if you have this roundness here, like this sort of garlic clove, shape where things are a bit, rounded. Make sure you have it like elsewhere. Like if it's further to the side, it's okay if it's like flatter, just because of perspective. Like how to say the angle of view, not so much perspective. Uh, but it wouldn't be like something that's so that curved from this point of view. When it's slightly like rotated to the side, wouldn't suddenly be like you know concave like this. It
Yeah.
would probably be just a little flatter, maybe like this. Um, and just for good measure, even though it's not always like the case in nature, uh, make that last digit smaller make maybe the middle one the biggest, and the index, if that's what it is, like yeah, pretty much the same size as the pinky.
Hmm.
So yeah, like take extra time because that's like yeah, that's something that's easy to mess up, and even for creatures, it's pretty much the same sort of ratio as for people in terms of like what's a focal area. Usually the face is the main one, then
Hmm.
the hands are also very expressive. So Paul's hands, like, and the face, it's even if it's made up like fantasy proportions and features, make sure they're consistent from one digit to the next. So it's all it all looks like it belongs, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one.
Hmm.
Keep going. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Elvira said these guides are so simple, but it's literally that border between an okay piece and a very cool piece. The understructure is always the most important. The treasure of knowledge. Yeah.
Uh, yes. Well, I'm glad that resonated. Thank you. Yeah, I'll share the JPEG with you, of course. After that,
Hmm.
I'll share them with Jaden, and he'll just distribute.
Yeah, I'll pass them on. Yeah.
Awesome.
Uh,
Um,
so this one is from
okay.
the Dawn. Um,
The dawn. Yes.
yeah, so it's still a work in progress, but they wanted to know your thoughts on how they could push the rendering even more in terms of fabric and metal, going for a League of Legends arcane style. Am I heading
Mm,
in the right path? So he actually uploaded two
okay.
pictures, but I think, yeah, for the sake of time, we're probably just going to take the one, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And hopefully that will work. So I'm pulling up some League of Legends art just to make sure I stay on
yeah.
brand.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. I see. I see. So
mhm,
yeah, the thing is like uh, first things first, like you want to try, of course, to indicate as much texture variety as possible using just brushwork,
mhm,
and then later, like sort of add little highlights of texture just to increase the sort of like realistic or intricate sort of feel to things. But for metal, I think you can do pretty much everything by hand. But for fabric, yeah, you might want to add like a bit of like fabric texture here and there, sometimes just like on the highlights or something. Um, but yeah, like so for what's really important is to have a consistent, like first of all, like for metals, to have a consistent uh, light source. So let me tell you what I mean. Uh, I'll open this here, finish point. All right. Okay. That's my sort of trick for lighting. Like imagine that this is like a spotlight that whose rays are like perfectly, parallel with each
yeah,
other.
yeah,
And so imagine it coming from like behind and to the left of us, to the right, sorry, to the right of us, like far off screen, like above and to the right of us,
mhm,
and vanishing way below this guy's feet, like to the left here, uh, something like this. And with a bit of imagination, you can sort of sense where things would create a highlight. So it would be something like basically wherever one of these rays of light, like those sort of indicate rays of light, wherever they hit a surface at 90 degree or close to it, is where you would have a highlight. Um, and the further away, like how to say, the more a ray of light hits a surface, like in a sort of slanted or sloped way, the less the less light is received on that surface.
mhm,
So let me see. This would be a pretty strong highlight right here. You can sort of imagine a ray of light like hitting right there, whereas that edge over here would not receive as much light. So it takes a bit of like imagination, but um, same here, like this sort of edge right there, it could catch the same sort of light. Um, Here and here as well, I feel it would catch a nice light.
Yeah, so it's kind of knowing about where your light source is.
Yeah, exactly. Like knowing where your light source comes from
Yeah.
and keeping it consistent. Like having a guide like this helps, just like the perspective thing I did with the
Yeah.
dragon. Like it sort of helps you like avoid too much guesswork. It's
Hmm.
easy to guess for one thing, but when you have too many objects and too many surfaces, it quickly becomes like a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I can imagine when you're trying to do when you're trying to do these sort of highlights on a whole character, if you get
yeah,
one or two things just in the wrong place, it's kind of like, well, hold on, what is happening?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you see here, you could have like some highlights as well, but like the back here could recede much more in the shadow. So
Mm,
it takes a bit of like trial and error, but like as long as you have sort of visual guide that's consistent,
yeah.
you can avoid like the strongest misses, or at least you can know where how to experiment. Like it sort of direct the way you experiment with light. Um, let's say, yeah, this this here would probably highlight would sort of hit more above.
Mhm.
And yeah, like for metallic highlights, make sure you really condense, like you really sharpen those highlights. So
Mhm.
now it's a bit loose, but what I'm doing, but you see, like even here, I'm sort of making sure that the rest is pretty dark, and only like the part that's lit, that's really catching the light directly, only that like really gets a strong highlight.
Yeah.
Um, see here,
It's interesting how small changes, like just a couple of highlights, can really
yeah,
change quite a lot, like visually.
mm, for sure, yeah. It's and don't be afraid to like darken a lot, like things that are receding away from light. So for example, this piece here, you could darken it a lot, and later we can add like a bit of bounce light or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, like whatever you try to do, like for example, for highlights, keep them on one layer so you know exactly like how to control them, like where to apply them,
Hmm.
and later the rest can be more in the shadow. And later, if you have like a bounce light, you just like putting on its own layer and make sure you only do that. You know, you only address that sort of part of the lighting. So for example, here I'll just do a little more of the highlights and sort of leave everything else in the shadow,
Hmm.
just on purpose. And I'll show you like exactly what I mean with the bounce light. This could be more shaded. This as well. Okay, and so now imagine like you have a like you want to create a bounce light or maybe a rim light or something, like just a different light source. You can simply bring a new vanishing point. You can put it, for example, like for rim lights, I like to put it like elsewhere,
Yeah.
like the opposite direction. But now imagine that like before what we did, like the vanishing point, like was way below the feet. That's where the rays of light were ending. Like the spotlight was like parallel rays of light sort of falling on the character,
Hmm.
and vanishing away far in the distance in the infinity, like into this vanishing point here, like vanishing into that point.
Hmm.
Now imagine for this for this light source, just imagine the opposite, that this light, like this, the light source is actually where the vanishing point is.
Yeah.
Just imagine like a candle sort of radiating all these rays of light there. Uh, and that's a good way to indicate like a secondary light source. So you can put it elsewhere here, and you can sort of project like this. You can sort of understand where those rays of light would sort of hit the character. But it's kind of a reverse, like I don't know, like a sort of like going from the opposite direction. This time they're actually coming from the vanishing point, so you just have to sort of wrap your head around it. But once you know that, like you can just follow the rays of light and see if that would hit correctly or interestingly. Um, so all right, let's try this. Let's try a rim light that's maybe bluish, and we'll put it in lighten so I can go over the background without impacting it. So same thing, you see, like I would sort of, wherever those rays of light hit that surface close to 90 degree is where you would have like the strongest highlights.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sort of like going like pretty much painting by numbers, you know, like I'm just like following your design, see where things are.
Yeah.
And just this sort of, yeah, just this sort of like consistency or this sort of like rigor, going rigorously throughout the design and sort of adding little bits of bounce light. It sort of complements the design. It sort of like takes it for granted and just, you know, highlights its little volumes. Like I'm not reinventing or changing your designs. I'm just consistently sort of applying a lighting scheme that could hopefully highlight its shapes correctly.
Yeah. And it's cool that you're going in quite I don't know if heavy is the right word, but you're going in quite heavy and then like pulling it back, um,
Mm.
which is quite nice. You're going in.
So yeah, I think overall, like just using lines again, like to help you understand where the light is coming from, will help you definitely create something more consistent. Then for sorry, it's a bit quick because like it's a pretty complex feedback that you're asking for, like you know how to make it look more like you know League of Legends and stuff like that. So the second part of the feedback would be like when you when you paint how to say yeah when you paint fabric. You see now fabric is pretty tricky. The way you've done it here is okay, it's pretty good. Um, but I think you could show more creases and like more realistic, like how to say, fastenings and bindings, you know,
Yeah.
with the within the character. Because now, like this loincloth is just sort of like there, like not too sure if it's like a sort of apron or something that's like it seems to be just hanging off like over the edge of the pants, pretty much. It would be cool to see like yeah more fastening, I guess. Let me try a different brush, something that connects it to the rest of the character. Um, Something that creates also like interesting like pinchings and creasings, you know, in the pants.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you're doing, like try to use different shapes than what you have elsewhere. So you see, like if you have a sort of flat-ish sort of shape here on the chest, or like try to avoid like flat shapes on elsewhere, like
Yeah.
on the loincloth, for example. Try to go for something like really dramatically opposite. So we have a nice different sensation from it, like different shape language. Longer horizontal creases would be cool. Not many flat, you know, even areas. You can keep that for like the metal, like the metallic parts. That'd be cool. Maybe something not symmetrical, like for example, the armor is pretty symmetrical.
Yeah.
You could go for like something more angled like this. You could cast an interesting shadow here.
So apparently it's supposed to be like an apron, like a welding apron, something.
Okay.
Which I wonder then if it would be, if it's meant to be an apron, do you think maybe like changing the material would help as well? Or like the color or something? Or
Right, the color.
I don't know. I'm just posing it as a.
Sure. Interesting, yeah. Well, I would definitely make it a different value in color from the
Yeah,
pants. Like
yeah.
now it's a bit too close. It could be desaturated, it could be more gray. Let's try something. And the bottom part could be like the pants could be a little lighter or
Yeah.
just slightly maybe. Yeah, I think that would be yeah, so just to sum up, because I have to sort of move on to another piece, but like
Yeah.
to sum up my feedback, like try to apply lighting more consistently using these lines as guides or similar kind of approach. Um, Try to also then go from the bigger shape language down to the smaller details. So I don't have much time to like finally render like maybe textures and stuff like that, but try to see that thing first, right? Like big shape differences between and color differences between like the various elements. Using just radically different shape language really for like what's going to be leather, what's going to be like the pants,
Yeah.
what's going to be like metal, and then like try to work more and more finely. So for example, the apron could be a little like so yeah leathery, so it could catch some pretty not wet but like kind of sleek kind of highlights here and there. Whereas the pants could be much more like dull, like like denim or some sort of rough fabric,
Yeah.
and so have very little highlights. Very just not as sharp as on the apron. And just to go again like a different direction, like for the metallic highlights, try to make those highlights like even sharper. So right away when we read this character, when we look at it, we understand there's so many materials on him, and they all behave differently. So yeah, it's a really good base already. I just hope these tips help. I'll uh, I'll save this and hopefully you can take it from there.
Yeah. Cool. I will. Yeah, I'll send you the PNG afterwards. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So the next one, while you're saving all of those, is
Right.
from, I think the next one is that one. Yep. From
Mm,
Capric. They said,
yeah.
"Here's my latest finished piece. If I get the chance, I'd like to hear any critique about it." Um,
Mhm.
they said they're still looking for what they're good at, but they're kind of
Okay.
currently changing their style, I think. But yeah, any kind of
Oh,
critique I
okay.
think would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know what the previous style was like. Just so maybe more realistic stuff. Trying to go more for stylized now.
Maybe I wonder. Oh, I think they might be moving from this to something more realistic. But
Okay.
um, but I suppose any critique is good
Okay.
critique. So
Sure. It'd be a pleasure to oblige.
yeah.
So all right. So first of all, it's pretty cool. It's a fun looking picture.
Mhm.
Composition is interesting. There's something I look out for is like horizontals and diagonals and verticals, like trying to make sure there's like a good amount of like diagonals to move the picture along and to avoid like any stillness, because verticals and horizontals are pretty still. So yeah, nice use of diagonals everywhere.
Mhm.
It's really good. Uh, That's pretty fun. So I think the main issue is the anatomy. Even if it's stylized, I think we need like something more consistent. So let me help you adjust that. So let's take his head. That's the most the soundest form we have on this body.
Yep.
Then we have the chest here. That's also very nice. Something like this. So there's a few basic shapes to know, like when you draw like a figure. So of course like a sort of oval with a cross for the head is just the most basic thing you can do. Then for the chest, I like to do like some sort of large rib cage. So it's not just the rib cage; it's like rib cage plus muscle, especially like showing a bit of like the collarbone. I like to sort of show where the collarbone would be pointing. That's a good landmark for the anatomy, because from there you can sort of project the middle line for the chest, like dividing the pecs, and then here that will help you like sort of project the abdominals, yeah, the abs,
Yeah. Yeah.
lower, and then the side later we'll add the shoulders. But yeah, first I would definitely take these two shapes here and merge them, and then we'll start like fixing the anatomy of the arms, because it's a little bit inaccurate or a little bit hasty the way you draw it. So take reference. You can stylize those references, but make sure you really start from a really solid set of pictures. The elbow would be here. So then we would have like the forearm, something like this. And then the forearm would be there.
I really love the duck tattoo though.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I don't know how that fits into the lore of this guy, but
no, but it's very cool.
I love it, and I'm gonna get it myself.
Nice. Duck tattoo with a sword of it's a
samurai
sword,
sword,
or something.
katana, yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, so it's pretty tricky when you're like a very muscular character with like a sort of arm like angled forward, like a lot of shapes sort of compressed like this together. But like I was saying before, like on the Soul Let Down,
Yeah.
like the very first sort of the sort of demon character, when you have like a character like showing like sort of projecting his forearm, like his arms or any part really forward like this, you'll have a lot more roundness in the joints and in anything that's sort of like supposed to wrap around the arms. So you see the forearm would like really have like all these curves like this. And just by changing that, we suddenly go from like a sort of flat, pretty short form, and we transform it into something that we understand is longer.
Yeah.
It's just foreshortened.
And it looks
So
like
foreshortening is tricky. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, and when you kind of extend that arm out a little bit more, there's less muscle fighting for space, I think.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. And then that's tricky, but it's like a matter of understanding like muscle groups a little better and see for example like okay, if the top like the upper arm is like this, like that's the whole area we can play with. The deltoid would sort of extend like almost to the middle. Like I have pretty much no deltoids, of course, but if you can believe it, it can go all the way down there, and then you have like pretty much it's almost half. You like from the top of the shoulder down to the deltoid down to the elbow. It's pretty much there, like half of it. So that would be pretty much it. Like that's the top of the shoulder. That's your elbow. That's where you would have deltoid right there. Then the deltoid would also like start right here, like really at the armpit essentially, and wrap like really curved, just the same thing we did with the forearm here. Greek curve with the angle of your arm here, and project it more like this.
Looking at
We
this,
all
I'm
have to need to
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was sat there like trying to feel where my deltoid starts and ends, and I'm like, okay, that's bone, that's bone, that's bone.
Yeah, that's soft tissue. I'm not sure what, skin, fat.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's not muscle, that's for sure.
It's definitely not. Yeah, it's yeah. So I mean, of course, yeah. Reference pictures. That'll save you. Yeah, and yeah, there's also like this big muscle group, like pretty much again, like you have to have faith. Like there's like a sort of a big muscle group here, like on the on the forearm that sort of connects to the inside of the elbow and then wraps around the forearm like this. So you would have to sort of imagine it like this and give it like plenty of roundness really to connect correctly and create this sort of the crook of the elbow right there. But it's really tricky. Like it took me years and years, and I'm still not really perfect at it. But it's a really arduous, sort of process to learn anatomy and refine your anatomy skill. Yeah, it's so. Don't worry. It's you see, I'm still like trying to joke around the fact that I still don't, not quite sure what I'm doing. Like so, but it gets there with a bit of comparative anatomy, a bit of imagination. You can get there. Back of the arm as well, like the triceps, they would sort of like bulge up, like further up like this, and then you have like the sort of tendon there that sort of makes a straighter line all the way to the elbow, like this. And essentially, there's a weird sort of soft transition. I'm not too sure how it happens, but like the delts sort of connects to the like just around the collarbone, like this, yeah. And then like the pecs sort of radiate like this. So you don't have to like show all the little striations and the fibers of the muscle, but just to so you understand, like sort of like all starts around the armpit, really. And you would have like something like this. And for the other arm, same thing. Let's see. You'll need a. So yeah, usually what I do, like when I want things in a certain position, I'll do the joints first. For example, I'll do this shoulder here, then I'll do the elbow there. Oops, right there, and then I'll do the yeah, the forearm like this. And so this is what I want. Now I sort of pose them there, and I'm gonna try to just sort of try to squeeze all those features within that space, like within these angles, trying to really play around with like foreshortening and curvature to really compress as much detail as I can. So this arm is like going back like this.
They're talking about kidnapping you, Arthur.
Oh.
So,
take it as a compliment.
Yeah. They don't want you to leave after the stream is done. They want you to stay and do more.
Okay, I wish I could for sure.
Yeah,
it's really fun. This is relaxing, and yeah, and it's nice to know. It's always nice to like see you guys comment and interact.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks so much. Yeah. Anyway, deltoids, those are pretty big, especially when you lift your like arms up. Like this whole mass will sort of get pretty close to your cheeks and everything. So think of it like as its own, like it really lifts up. It doesn't just pivot up. Like you can pivot your arm up, but there's a whole thing where like your whole shoulder blades lifts with your shoulder, and so this creates a pretty big mass that has to really be indicated. You can hide a lot of it like a lot of the arm behind that mask like this, but you really have to indicate it, right? And then same thing, we'll just sort of.
Once you have those like joints in place, it's kind of almost like a game of connect the dots, you know, where it's like
It is, yeah, yeah, for sure. It's yeah, little hacks like that, like guidelines for lighting, for perspective, and joints. Just posing joints first, and then making it
yeah,
work, connecting the dots. It's little life hacks that hopefully, yeah, help. Yeah, same thing here. Let's make sure we get plenty of curvature. Because again, like if you were to do like something like this, suddenly the arm becomes very short, very weird, very stubby. So the more curvature you give to your accessories, the more we understand it's just seen from a different angle.
yeah.
So this is pretty much like what was striking me as not quite there yet, like just the anatomy of the arms. I think if you can just be a bit more methodical, like take your time, like especially for portfolio pieces like this, you really want to take the time to make it as right as possible. Hopefully, I'll share the paint over, and hopefully that will help.
Yeah.
That's great. But thank you so much for sharing your work.
No, thank you for choosing it. And then we have one more. We have just under 10 minutes. But
Yeah,
we might want to finish a little bit early, I think, if you have something else after this. But
sure. It's okay. So this was really good. Like, like I guess last but not least, that's for sure.
yeah,
This is like really magnificent. I love it. Like, it's so cool. Like everything is really cool. Like it's giving me those Ranja vibes, like very moody, like ghostly kind of figures. Very like androgynous,
yeah,
very graceful. There's sharpness, there's elegance everywhere. Like it features are very symmetrical, which is great. Um, Hands are really spot on,
yeah.
awesome. Maybe fingers are like you might want to work on this one. It's like the fingernail is not quite there. If I could,
This one is by Sveta Pikul, by the way. Just for those of you
yeah,
who might want to know.
yeah. So yeah, I would give it more curvature because you see like her other nails are pretty like oval. So I think you can of course flatten the end of it, but it takes forever as well, like to find just the amount, like just the right amount of curvature versus flatness. I think this would be more correct. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely nitpicking right now. Just looking for tiny adjustments because otherwise it's really looking great. Let's see what else we have. Yeah, like okay, right here you could definitely angle it like this because again I'm left-handed. So yeah, you want to make like the tip of that thumb thinner. You want to avoid like the sort of like even thickness on a digit. Uh, yeah, that would look, I think, more graceful, and also like tilt that the tip of the thumb up like this, and instead of having the nail like stick out like this, make it more in a like aligned with the rest of the digit, like the top side of the digit. And I think a nice contact shadow with the staff would be really cool. But you see, it's like little things that hopefully help with the overall like gracefulness that's already working really well.
Yeah.
In here, I
love
think
the
longer nails.
I love the effects in the painting as
Yeah,
well. Really nice.
yeah, really cool. Last thing I wanted to say, maybe there's more, but yeah, be careful with like it's not quite clear like whether it's a mistake or not because there's like a lot of garment. Uh, but make sure the anatomy is a bit more thought out, because given this angle, I don't think the shoulder will extend so far to the back, like to the side, I mean.
Hmm.
Um, it's a little, it creates a sort of long trap, like trapezoid,
Yeah.
like a long sort of, lower part of the neck. So I think I would put it more there, and then make sure with just a little bit of structural like work, make sure the rest of the arm is sort of aligned
Hmm.
properly with, and like this. Um, yeah, just like that. And then to complement that, I would make sure the scarf, like the garment sort of flows accordingly with the arm, like the way it's positioned. So could curve a little more here, and also like the creases, the folds could follow along like the anatomy a little more. Um,
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm just being all over the place right now. Let me clarify that. I'll make that right. Lower opacity. So yeah, like on the upper arm, something like this, and more like yeah, more creases like this, just around the elbow, just so the fabric really interacts interestingly and realistically, or naturally at least. There's a
Hmm.
difference between being realistic and natural. Realistic is really you're trying to be like as real as possible, but you can be stylized and still looking natural.
Yeah.
And that's more to like just physics, like fabric interacting with just objects and pinching, creasing, that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would experiment a little more with like first defining the structure of the arm, like maybe correcting a little bit the position of the shoulder, and then like wrapping that fabric in an interesting, natural manner.
Yeah.
But it's looking really cool otherwise. So just little aesthetic choices. Um, Maybe one very last note I have is that I think you could do better than aligning like like this a little too parallel, like the background structures, it's a little too parallel with the gesture of the character.
Hmm.
So I think it could go either like this or more like this, but just a little difference, because parallels are pretty, they're like horizontals and verticals. Like parallels sort of, they're a little uncanny, they're a little unnatural, or
Yeah.
how to say, they lack spontaneity. They sort of, they're not very immersive. They sort of pull you out of the picture a little too much.
Hmm.
So there's something I would recommend. Just like make sure you have like more of a either the composition converging somewhere, or like towards the opposite. However you want to like do it. It doesn't have to be like maybe these are supposed to be vertical structures, so they're sort of aligned with the character, but they could be more. You could justify it because it's so like dreamy and
Hmm.
ethereal. You could justify it with all kinds of like structure, or maybe like wisps of atmosphere or wind or whatever. Just create something more where lines converge more. I think would be cooler.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't believe it. I managed to give pretty even amount of feedback to
Yeah.
everybody. That's
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was probably the best we've done in time, like not just for your not just for your sessions, but for
oh,
most of the critiques. I think that's the best we've done in a long
okay.
time. So
Thanks.
um, thank you so much. Thank you everybody again
Yeah.
who handed in some work for us to take a look at. So that's Saul the Letdown, Alina Chervoniuk. I'm really sorry. The Don Caprik and Sveta Pikul as well. I'd love for you all to keep posting your work on the Discord. I'm sure everybody else would love to see your work too, because we had some amazing submissions, and it's a shame that we don't get to see enough of it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, keep posting. I love to look at it, and I'll always throw some thoughts your way anyway. So thank you as well to Arthur for taking the time out. I know you are very much in high demand, so I'll let you get away. But thank you
Thanks.
everybody for coming along.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Have a great day,
um,
everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll be back on Wednesday with a new stream. So see you
Nice.
Wednesday. Bye bye,
Yes,
everyone.
you went. Bye.